Hello, and we are live. Welcome to CAD Live with Troy Francis, with me, Troy Francis. So today I'm going to be talking about introversion and dating, because I think that guys often ask me about this, and this is really something that is of great concern to many people, really, in terms of, is it possible to be somebody who is, sorry, just fiddling with some settings here. Is it possible to be somebody who is an introvert, but who is also successful at game or good at dating skills? And I mean, this is something that in this space time and time again. And clearly it's something of importance, because a lot of guys that get drawn to this particular space, who follow content of this kind, you know, they tend to be dudes who perhaps are somewhat introverted already. Because let's face it, if you were a guy who was just like an extrovert, like life and soul of the party, like you were a dude who was you know, like you're a dude who is like out there, who's doing whatever he wants to do, blah, then would you be seeking out this kind of material? Well, probably you wouldn't be, right? Because it's likely that you would have already thrown yourself into so many like social situations already that you would have got the necessary reference experiences in order that, you know, the edges would be taken off in terms of your introversion or your shyness or your inability to perform within that social space. You know, you would find that you would be much more confident just as a result of I'm just going to change over the thing here actually. You would be much more confident just as a result of having put yourself into all of those myriad of different you know, different situations, right? So, but dudes often, they come to this thing and they will get the impression that in order to be successful in this endeavor, you've got to be like, all right, guys, I'm like mega confident. I'm the life and soul of the party. I am, you know, this kind of guy who I'll just walk up to anybody. I'll walk up to a group of guys and girls, whatever. I don't care. I'll talk to them, blah. And many of us are not that kind of a person, or at least they're not that kind of a person in the initial stages of the interaction. And so, unsurprisingly, this becomes an issue, and this becomes something that is asked about a lot. Well, the message of the show today is fundamentally that indeed you can be introverted, you can be shy, you can be somebody who doesn't run with the pack, okay? And you can still have success in this area. How do I know that? Because that's exactly how it was for me. I have now, first of all, before we go further into this, we need to like talk of definitions a little bit, I guess. And I know that there are going to be guys coming into the chat who will say something like, yes, but the clinical definition of an introvert is this. And, you know, you're not really talking about introversion, or introverts aren't shy necessarily. And that's absolutely correct. They're not. The received thinking, as far as I'm aware now, in terms of what an introvert actually is that an introvert is somebody who is draws energy from being on their own. It's somebody who draws energy from getting out of social scenarios just for a little bit, and you know, going and just being on their own and refueling their energy through being alone rather than being surrounded by other people. And that's exactly what I'm like. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, actually, by a woman somebody not in any sense connected with this space or anything like that. And she was saying how, and she is a very, very gregarious, famous woman in the United Kingdom. She's well known on TV. She's like a reality TV star and stuff like this. And she was describing how when she goes to a social event, she often gets a bit overwhelmed by not only all the people being there, but also her kind of being the center of attention. Because obviously, as a celebrity, she is center of attention. And she described how sometimes what she will do is she will actually go and put herself into go into the toilet and actually go and sit in the toilet, the lavatory, whatever you want to call it, the toilet, into the restroom, whatever. And she will actually go and sit there for a period of time on her own in order to get her energy back. Okay. And that sounds pretty crazy. And if you knew who this woman was, and if you saw her, on TV and stuff, you wouldn't think that that would be the case at all. But I really identified with that. As soon as she said it, I thought, shit, because I do that myself. Sometimes I'll be at a social event, and I'm having a good time. And this is the other thing as well. We shouldn't assume that people who are introverted don't enjoy social interactions, because they absolutely do. I really like going and meeting people. I really like going out. I like going to nightclubs and bars and lounges and things like this, and putting myself out there. I mean, I really enjoy it. But the key thing is that it depletes my energy quite quickly. It makes me feel physically tired. I get a bit overwhelmed by it, and I just want to get myself away in order to recharge. And so what this woman was saying, I really identified with, because I've done similar to that. I have taken myself out, like I'll be at a party, or I'll be at a club, or I'll be at a networking event or something like this, and I will deliberately take myself out of the melee for a period of time. Maybe go to the toilet, go to the smoking area, go for a little walk outside of the room where the party's being held, or whatever, just to collect my thoughts, just to regroup and retain my energy. And that's why I would classify myself as being an introvert as opposed to an extrovert, because I think an extrovert, in my understanding of the terms anyway, is somebody who is just happy to put themselves out there the whole time, and actually thrives on that energy that they get from being with other people. And for me, it's always been a little bit different from that. But as I say, it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy going out and about as well. Len says, I consider myself naturally introverted, but luckily able to flip the extroverted switch in social gatherings. 100%. That is me as well. And I think, and that's really what I want to focus on in this stream today. And by the way, if you guys have got any questions, if you've got anything that you want to ask about dating, game, the dating marketplace, etc., please leave the questions in the chat, and we will get to them later on in the stream as we go through. Okay, it can be about introversion and shyness, but it doesn't have to be. It can be about anything that you want to talk about related to dating and game, and so on and so forth. So yeah, introversion in itself is not a bad thing. Fundamentally, you have to pace yourself. Okay, and here's something else as well that I discovered in my own career in this space, is that I think that there is something very different about interacting with a woman that you are attracted to, as opposed to having to perform socially at some boring network event with a load of guys that you don't really get on with or care about or anything like that. So the reward that you get when you're interacting with somebody that you're attracted to, with a woman that you're attracted to, is likely going to override the introversion that you have and the sort of uncomfortableness you might be feeling about being in that social situation. So, like with anything, if you want to, and somebody I was talking to earlier was asking, like, how do I get, how do I get motivation in order to go out? How do I get motivation to do this stuff in the first place? And the answer to that question is you need to think about what your end game is. You know, you need to think about what you are shooting for. And if what you are shooting for is, you know, you want to meet an amazing girl and you want to get intimate with her and you want to enjoy all of those good times, then you've got to really, really focus in on that particular thing. And you've got to think, okay, well, that is something that's really, really desirable. That is something that's going to make my life really great if I can get that experience. And you've got to use that as the bait, if you like, in order to drive you on, in order to keep moving you forward in pursuit of that particular goal. Okay. Now, all of that being said, if you are watching this and you're somebody who is very shy, you're somebody who is a classical introvert, you know, you find it, you don't like to go out, maybe you don't go to clubs and bars and things like this, then what are some of the steps that you can take in order to improve your game, in order to improve your dating skills? Well, look, for me, what happened for me, Ryan, I'll tell you a bit of a background story now. And then if anyone sort of like relates to this, then give me a note in the chat. And as I say, do put questions in the chat as well. Any questions that you've got, any comments, etc., we'll get to them as we go through. But yeah, I mean, I was extremely introverted growing up as a kid and as a young man. Very, very introverted, and very shy as well. If you want to delineate between shyness and introversion, I was also very shy, verging on antisocial, in the sense that I not only found it difficult to socialize with people, but I actually I didn't even like it that much either. You know, I was really, really not bothered about socializing with other people, and I would make the effort to spend as much time on my own as I could. Okay. And as a consequence of that, my dating life as a young man in my late teens and then my early 20s absolutely sucked. In fact, it didn't even suck. It was non-existent. Because I wasn't talking to anybody. You know, now I had some friends, I had some like male friends, I think maybe a couple of female friends as well. And I would socialize with those people. But I've always much preferred one-on-ones as opposed to, you know, big groups and all that kind of thing. And, you know, I found it really, really difficult to talk to people, really difficult to relate to people, really difficult actually to form friendships with people, certainly with people that I considered to be higher value than me. If I considered the person to be of similar value to me or lower value, then I was reasonably relaxed in their company and I could form some kind of friendship with them. But if I thought that they were higher value than me, then I found it very, very hard. I would become very self-conscious, quite literally conscious of myself. I would become very, very focused on myself and what I was doing in the interaction and how bad I looked and how stupid I sounded and whatever. And that would really, really stifle me. And so as a consequence of that, and also I had no concept at this time about challenging myself, about moving out of my comfort zone and pushing my boundaries and all that kind of thing. I had no concept of it whatsoever. And so I didn't. And so I stayed within my comfort zone. I stayed within my boundaries. I didn't push myself to meet new people. I didn't push myself into challenging social situations. In fact, I did everything that I possibly could to avoid them. And as a consequence of that, I remained, you know, kind of comfortable in a sense in that comfort zone, but I wasn't able to break out and get the kinds of results socially that I could have otherwise got. Okay. And like I said, my dating life sucks. And I've told this story on here before, guys, but there was a time I was at Oxford University. I'd gone to visit the university as a potential student. I was there for a weekend to sort of like see what the vibe was like. I remember having dinner in this very posh like dining hall. One of the evenings we went to some lectures. We met with professors, all this kind of thing. And it was all geared around, you know, this is a potential Oxbridge student who can come along here and study here. And it was at a weekend, I think, and on the first evening, maybe the Friday night, after the lectures had finished and everyone had eaten, most of the other people, you know, got together and socialized, and I think went to local pubs and things and had a few drinks. And I was as is my wont, you know, completely repelled by that. And I just went off on my own, went to my room, and then I went for a walk around the town on my own, looked at some stuff, came back, went to bed, whatever. Next morning I get up, go down to breakfast. We have, there was a very nice dining room there. We went down and had breakfast at this particular college, and there were sort of like shared seats, you know, tables with like long seats on it, and people were sitting down on the seats. And I went down there, and I was on and two girls came to the table that I was on. So I'm sitting there eating the breakfast. These two girls come along, and one of the girls, and they were quite attractive, I think, from memory. And one of the girls came up, you know, looked up at me and, being friendly, said, "Oh, you know, how's it going? Did you have a good evening last night?" And I was so shy. I was so self-conscious. I was so unable to express myself in that moment that I couldn't even get eye contact with her. I couldn't even allow myself to have eye contact with her and just to answer the simple question. So instead, I just kind of looked down, obviously submissive, didn't say anything, and a moment passed, which seemed like a year, but a moment passed. And then she said to her friend, he can't talk. And then they carried on talking, and they just ignored me for the rest of the meal. And that was it. And I felt great shame at that, because for a start, I was kind of attracted to this girl anyway, and it was embarrassing. And secondly, you know, like, how ridiculous, really, that you can't even communicate. You can't even have a conversation with another human being. And I felt terrible shame, but I just blocked it out. I didn't look at the girls again. I didn't talk to them again. They went off after breakfast, went to do their thing, and that was it. End of story. But that was where I came from. You know, it not only, and sometimes I'll see guys who come to this space and they're like, yeah, man, you know, I used to find it really tough with girls. You know, I was only dating like 3 cheerleaders at school, but, you know, apart from that, it was a washout, you know, and now I've become this like master kind of seducer or whatever. And for me, that's just, I look at that and I think, it's, you know, compared to me, it sounds like you had it pretty easy, to be honest. I was literally somebody who couldn't create eye contact with other human beings. I mean, not even attractive girls. I mean, forget girls, other dudes. You know, I was so like ashamed of myself and the way that I looked, and my appearance and the way that I came across. I couldn't even hold eye contact with another guy. And this went on all through my teens and into my early 20s, really, when I was at university. So I went into university. Hey, Ryan, thanks for the comment. I went into university, and I was sort of like, you know, on my own in the university at the beginning, and found that really hard as well. So, like, however we're going to define introversion, in my view, I came from a position that was very, very low on the scale. I mean, in terms of ability to socialize, it was very low. Now, having said all of that, I shouldn't give the impression that I was a complete, I'm going to say loser now, which is not the right word to use. But I mean, that was one example of how things work. But having said that, I've previously been in a different school. And we moved schools quite a lot as well. And that I found difficult. And I think that was one of the reasons why, you know, this stuff was so tricky for me. But in my previous school, I had actually been mates with quite a few people there, got on pretty well with a few people there. And because I've been there for quite a long time, I was actually all right socially, you know, and people started to kind of like me, and they started to get to know me, and I was getting on all right with guys and girls alike in that particular school. And it was a great shame, because I had to leave that school when I was about 15, which is like a year before you would leave anyway, before you do your exams and then leave anyway, and start a new school, which was really tough for me at that time. because obviously I created those friendships over time, and there were girls who were interested in me at that school, and there were guys that I was friends with, and it was all going quite well. And then we moved schools to this new place, and things started to go downhill, and I sort of retreated back into this introversion. But in a sense, and this is like kind of another side of the coin with introversion, it was also very egotistical in another way, because when you're when you're somebody who sort of like avoids social contact, there's a sort of a part of you, and there certainly was a part of me, that was quite arrogant as well. In the sense that I was somebody who, while I was scared and frightened, because it comes down to fear in the end, while it was scary and frightening, in order to, sorry, I lost my train of thought, to interact with other people. Well, I found that scary, and I found that frightening, and blah, blah, blah. There was another part of me that I thought I was better than everyone else. There was another very egotistical, narcissistic part of me that thought, well, sod all you lot anyway, because I'm superior, I'm better. Like, I'm so intelligent, I'm so fantastic, I'm so wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And if you lot could only see, if you people could only see the truth of the matter, then you would regret it, etc., etc. So the flip side to, and I don't mean introversion here, but the flip side to sort of like shyness or social fear around like putting yourself out there, can often be a kind of a narcissism, a kind of an arrogance, and that I certainly had that. And sometimes with socializing, a lot of it is down to, you've got to kind of just get over yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not that important. It's just not that important how you come across, like what other people think of you. Like they don't really care that much. And this is something that we learn in doing game and dating, because you worry about what the girl's going to think of you. You worry about what the people who are watching are going to think of you if she rejects you or whatever. The truth of the matter is, nobody really cares. Nobody really gives a damn, And so we all need to get over ourselves a bit in order to break through this and to get through to the other side. Atham says, subscribe, Mofo, so I can start giving super chats to Troy. Thank you very much, Atham. That's really nice of you to say. However, unfortunately, it's not number of subscribers that means that I don't get super chats. It's because the channel is demonetized. So I wouldn't be able to get, so everybody please do subscribe, hit subscribe below on the red button. But even then I won't be able to get super chats unless I can get the channel monetized, which I haven't been able to do so thus far. So, and that's because of like a technical error within Google, basically. So I'm trying to appeal it. We'll see what happens. It might be that in time I have to start up another channel and try to push people over to that other channel and hopefully get that monetized. But it's an annoying issue. But if you do want to support me, I've got a Streamlabs code, which I was going to put into the chat. But also just buy a book. I mean, buy Renegade Dating Blueprint, $39. You get 11 copies of my books. Things like How to Be an Arsehole, 7 Laws of Seduction, Still in the Game, etc., etc. All of those books you get in Renegade Dating Blueprint. There is a link for that in the description below this video. So if you want to support the stream, then please consider doing that. The other thing to do is get on my free daily email list. So there's a link below. I send out an email Monday to Friday during the week. And if you join the email list, you will get that article free of charge. And it's a great way for me to keep in contact with you about offers and different things that I'm doing. Naughty Nomad. Hey, Mark, how's it going? I hope you are well. It's good to see you on the stream. Says, what is your favorite book that you've written? Well, I think it would have to be a toss-up. That's what she said. Between a book that I wrote back in about 2017 called How to Be an Arsehole, or How to Be an Arse. And I think I put out the O so that it looks a little bit less rude in case my mum sees it. And that was a book that really tries to fuse dark triad game, which I find really fascinating, with something called radical differentiation, which is standing out from the crowd. And in the book How to Be an Arsehole, I really talk, because I've always been fascinated with the bad boy thing, right? You know, why is it that the bad boy always gets the girl? Why is it that the jerk always gets the cute cheerleader, whatever, you know, at the end of the movie, or not at the end of the movie, but during the movie? Why is it that nice guys finish last? And, you know, and given the knowledge that nice guys finish last, what can we do about it? You know, how can we let out our inner bad boy in order to reap the benefits that seems to give? And so How to Be an Arsehole is a book where I really dive deep into that. And I think that's one of my better books. The other book that I really like is called 10 Times Happiness, Zero Bullshit, which is a book that is not even so much about dating and game, but it's a kind of a self-help book. And it really charts my own journey from being a sad, friendless loser, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, like I say, the word loser is a little bit judgmental, but you know what I mean? Coming from a very low base to being actually, you know, reasonably socially kind of like acute and able to handle social situations. Plus, on top of that, you know, obviously having, you know, managed to meet and enjoy the company of many different girls, and, you know, do quite well with business and in different areas of life. So in that book, 10 Times Happiness, Zero Bullshit, which is available on Amazon, by the way, I was able to really do a deep dive into that. And I go quite a lot into my memoir type stuff in there. So while it's a self-help book and there's practical pointers for how you can take this stuff on board and hopefully make some changes in your own life, it's also got a lot of my story in there as well. So I do like that one as well. I think that's a good one that I did. But yeah, I mean, I've done, you know, I've got some, basically, right, I need to be doing more writing. I mean, at the moment, I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and, you know, you get pulled into the seedy world of, well, I don't know, whatever you want to call this space, you know, and, you know, you end up doing YouTube, you end up doing live streams like this and everything. And I love doing them. But really, I got into the game in order to write. And so, sorry, just do this. Yeah, really, I got into the game in order to write, and that is really what I should be doing. That's really what I should be doing, you know. And so I do have another book planned. I keep talking about it. I'm not putting the seat of my pants onto the chair and getting on with it, but I need to be doing that, and that will be the next project for sure. Because as much as I like the video stuff, I like coming onto the live streams and all of that. It wasn't kind of my initial thing, you know. It wasn't the original thing that I wanted to do, and writing has always been my first love, and that will remain the case. Okay, let's go into another comment now. John Ellis says, smart beta introverts can fall into a state called secret king. These guys are super sensitive and bitter since the world won't recognize the greatness they think they have. Yes, this is true. Isn't this actually a gamma trait? So if you know anything about, well, there's a guy called Vox Day. I don't know if people are familiar with Vox Day. He's a kind of a very cerebral, slightly nutty actually dude who used to write about dating and game and now creates content about a lot of right-wing politics and stuff like this. But he very famously created, well, it's certainly a video that you can still see on YouTube, may have been an article as well, where he talked about the socio-sexual hierarchy. And yes, you've got alphas and betas, but he also delineated further groups, including what he calls gammas. Then there are omegas, who are people right down at the bottom of the pile, plus sigmas. Now, sigmas are guys who are sort of outside of the hierarchy, if you like, who don't recognize the hierarchy. A sigma, supposedly, is a dude who is kind of like an alpha, but he doesn't run with the pack. He goes and does his own thing. He doesn't mess around. He's not interested in the hierarchy. He's not interested in the dude who's the head of the football team, because he's like, well, I don't even play. I don't care about football. What do I give a damn about that? And the Sigma thing has become very popular online in recent years. You've got a lot of guys writing about Sigmas and talking about the fact that they're a Sigma and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not really sure that they are Sigmas, because then they're going about, oh yeah, hanging with my mates and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, on the one hand, you're claiming to be a Sigma, and then on the other hand, you're sort of like, you're espousing the virtues of being the heart and soul of the party. So like, which one is it, kind of thing? I would say that I'm a Sigma. I believe that I'm a Sigma, or at least I identify with Sigma as I've seen it described. But I kind of feel like Vox painted himself. It was kind of a coincidence, wasn't it, that for Vox Day, that he was a bit like, well, here's the social sexual hierarchy, and I'm not an alpha in the classic sense, but I am one of these Sigmas. And do you know what? It's actually Sigmas who are the most attractive. It's actually Sigmas who are at the top of the hierarchy. And what do you know? That's me. It was a bit of a coincidence that he created this hierarchy, and then just totally coincidentally, he happened to be at the top of the tree. But anyway, I digress. I think I identify with the Sigma thing, because I've never really liked hierarchy. This is why I started to learn about dating dynamics. This is why I started to learn about game. And the great thing about game is that it allows you not to have to be in the hierarchy. It gives you a way to access intimacy and sexuality without being the one who is chosen. Because this is the thing. Somebody was talking to me before about social circle game. And they were sort of saying, well, what about just girls in my social circle? What about girls that I just know through my job or through my, whatever it is? And yes, I mean, that's fine. You absolutely can do that. You absolutely can, rely on social circle game, and many people do. I'd say it's probably the default, isn't it? When you think about how people meet in society, a lot of the time it is they meet people at work. They meet people who their friends know. They meet people in their social group, and all of that's cool. But the difficulty that you've got, if you're in social, if you're sitting around at work thinking, oh, people always meet their wife at work, so yeah, I'm just going to sit here and and she's going to come along. The problem with that is that you are very much part of a hierarchy within that workplace. Now, it could be that you are a massive Chad and you're at the top of that hierarchy, and if so, then the girls are going to recognize that and they are going to select you because you are the top dude. But the problem comes when you're not regarded as the top dude, and you could still be an attractive guy. This is the problem with hierarchy game, is that you could still be a very attractive guy in many ways. But if in that specific hierarchy, like say your workplace, say your office, and you've got 30 people working in that office, right? There's 15 guys, 15 women. Well, no. Let's say there's 20 guys and there's 10 women. Okay, so there's greater competition for women. Now, of those 20 guys, you could be, if you're number one, great, problem solved. You're going to get the pick of the women who are available within the group of 10. The problem comes, and if you're at the bottom, you're going to be ruthlessly ignored, or you're going to be seen as a friend and everything else, but you're not going to be seen as a serious sexual potential. Okay, so you are completely screwed. But you're also screwed if you are something like at number 16. Sorry, the other way around. If you're at something like number 4. So number 4. So out of the 20 dudes, you are in the top 4. So you're pretty damn good. But because you're in that hierarchy, you're being compared to the dudes who are 1, 2, and 3. And those dudes are going to inevitably get the get the attention of the most high value women, because that's just the way that things go. And when it comes down to if you're at number 4 or you're at number 5 or 6 or number 7, I mean, like, by any other measure, that you're a pretty high value dude. But because you're being compared in a hierarchy to these other guys who are above you, you're going to lose out. And then when it comes down to the available women who are left out of the 10, you know, you might not be particularly interested in the ones who do like you because of your position, you know, because they are commensurately lower in their own hierarchy, and so therefore they select you as a reasonable potential mate. This is the problem with being in a hierarchy. This is the problem with buying into the societal narrative, which says, you know, you follow all the rules, you go to college, you go to work, and then you will meet somebody just naturally. It will just happen. Well, it will just happen, or it probably will just happen, unless you're one of these omega dudes who are at the bottom, in which case you might be, you know, totally screwed unless you do something to improve your position. But you're going to get what you're given, and you may not particularly like or want what you are given. And the whole thing about dating dynamics, the whole thing about game, is that it offers an opportunity to exist outside of the hierarchy, okay? Because when you're doing, say, cold approach day game, for example, you know, you could be walking down Oxford Street in London and you could see a girl who is a genuine model, you know, who is a Victoria's Secret model from Slovenia, but she's living in London, or she's in London for a casting, and she's just gone to Selfridges department store, and now she's walked out into the street of, you know, having come out of Selfridges department store. You could walk up to that woman and you can start a conversation with her, and potentially, although by no means guaranteed, but potentially you could end up getting her phone number, you could end up going on a date with her, you could end up, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not to imply or to suggest or to say that day game is it's some sort of like magical thing and it's always going to work, because it isn't. But the point that I'm making is that cold approach is a huge leveler, because it allows you opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise get. Because within society in general, she is a lot higher in the hierarchy than you. You know, she will be going to nightclubs and parties and private events that you're not going to get access to if you are that regular dude. But just by walking up to her in the street and starting a conversation, at least you get a shot. And sometimes those shots will turn into something tangible and real. Sometimes they'll turn into intimacy, okay? And that is an incredible thing. So this is why I've always liked, you know, dating dynamics. I've always liked game. And it's why, to be honest, I've always I've quite liked the kind of the Sigma tag, and I've always identified with the Sigma tag, because I kind of think surely hacking the system like that is a very Sigma way of going about things, you know, because if you're like an alpha, or if you're aspiring to alpha position, then essentially you love hierarchies, you know, you love being in the hierarchy, because if you're at the top, why not? It's awesome, right? But what the Sigma does is he resists all hierarchies. He doesn't want to fall into them, but he will certainly, you know, recognizing that hierarchies nonetheless do exist in every type of human interaction, he will necessarily place himself in hierarchies where he's at the top, or he will try to bypass them altogether. Okay, and that's always what I've sought to do, and that's what I sought to do with dating and game. Anyway, bit of a detour there. Ryan says, rule number 1, build your own hierarchy and make sure you're on top. 100%. Absolutely. And then he says, my take on Sigmas is they're fundamentally playing a different game than folks in a normal hierarchy. But that's me, because I fundamentally play a different game. Yeah, for sure. And I identify with that. And I would say the same thing for myself. Now, I'm sure other people will have different views and be like, oh, no, you're a beta, or you're a gamma, or you're, you know, whatever. Well, fine. But I would say my take on it, which is, of course, biased because I am myself, is that I've never really liked hierarchies. Because here's the thing, right, as well. When you think about school and you think about, like, college and all that stuff, I don't really care very much about a lot of the stuff that other people care about. I've never really been massively into sports, either playing them or watching them. So the whole like head of the football team thing, like I was never really going to buy into that anyway, because I'm not that interested. Do you know what I mean? So I was never captain of the football team. I was never captain of the cricket team at school, but then I never really bloody wanted to be. Do you know what I mean? And then there would be guys in my, obviously you'd meet the guy who was the captain of the football team and everything. And I would just be like, I wouldn't have no inherent respect for him in the way that other guys would, because I'm like, well, all right, well, so what? You're head of the football team. Well, all right, but what books have you read? What books have you written? What projects, what have you done artistically? What have you created, right? And the guy's like, who cares about that? I'm captain of the football team. Well, and so there's this like inherent disconnect between me and those guys, because I'm just like, I just don't get it, right? And probably almost like slightly, what's the word? Spurgy about it. Do you know what I mean? Like sort of always like literally like this guy has state, and not even recognizing the guy's status. That was the thing. And then later, maybe I started to work out, see how things were. And I'm like, all right, that guy has status, but I don't really get why. Because like, so what, And so for me, that is living outside of the hierarchy. And I'm still like that. I mean, I think because I've been in this space for a long time and I study this stuff, and you look at guys who are successful in dating and sex and stuff like that, then you start, I've become less myopic about it, because obviously you have to recognize that there are hierarchies in human interaction, and some guys are deemed to be at the top of those hierarchies. And even if I can't see it, that doesn't negate the reality that they are there. So now these days I'm like, well, okay, what can I learn from that dude, etc., etc. But I still don't really care. I mean, if some guy is like head of the football team or whatever, I'm like, so what, right? I'm not bothered about that, And so in that sense, I feel like I exist outside of hierarchies, and I certainly resist hierarchies as much as I possibly can. Ryan says, hacking the system, exactly. Rory. Hello, Rory. After long-term relationships, I go through a period of introversion, and only consistent cold approach gets my unconscious mind out of self-isolating. It's weird, really, but right, because I think I'm a bit of an anomaly with all this stuff. Because on the one hand, I come on here and I'm saying I'm an introvert and all that, and I do genuinely believe that. I'm not like making this stuff up just for why would I make that up? Do you know what I mean? And in general, I've got a lot of friends in London. I've got friends in other places and everything. And I love meeting up with people. I prefer to meet up with people one-on-one. So my favorite thing is, I'll meet up with a friend. So I haven't seen you for a while. Let's grab a coffee. Let's grab something bite to eat, whatever. And we'll meet up one-on-one. And we will, we'll get into a conversation, and it'll be really cool. I will meet bigger groups. I'm not afraid to do that or anything like that, but I don't particularly like, the bigger the group, the less I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? If somebody says, oh, right, there's 15 of us going out, I'm a bit like, I'll probably go. I might go, but I'm a bit like, and then within the group, what will probably happen is I'll end up like chatting to one or two of them and like forming almost like a little splinter group within the bigger group. Do you know what I mean? So that's just me. That's just how it is. But at the same time, I don't know that I really. I mean, I also really, really like company though, and this is why lockdown was I found so difficult. Because actually, the truth of the matter is, I'm in a position now because of the way that I'm doing this, the way that I'm earning an income, etc., etc. I'm working for myself, but I'm also working. I can work from anywhere. Like lockdown in theory didn't change shouldn't have changed anything for me, because I could just sit in a room for months on end, and as long as I got food coming in and those things, it shouldn't affect me. But actually, I found lockdown very difficult, and I really, really craved human interaction, because what I like to do is I like to go out and I like to see people, and I do like to be around people, which is kind of a paradox in a way. I like it as long as I've got an escape route. Do you know what I mean? And I like I like to go out and socialize, but I also like to be able to say, all right, sorry, I'm going to go home now, just disappear. Do you know what I mean? Like, as long as I got that out, then I'm okay. One of the worst situations in recent years was I went to a party in Manchester with at a friend's flat with some friends of mine were there and stuff. And there was also a load of other people there who I didn't know. And we were at this flat, and then we were meant to go to a bar. We were going to go out in town, go to a bar and go to a few bars, whatever. And I was like, well, this is cool because like we'll go out, we'll meet some other people. There might be some girls there, blah, blah, blah. What happened was that the weather was so crap. It was literally, and this is England, but it's also Manchester, which is famous. Excuse me. It was also Manchester, which is famous for being really rainy. It was horrific weather. It was like this monsoon. The heavens opened, and it was so bad that we couldn't even leave the apartment because where the bars were that we were going to go to, it was too far to walk, and we would have got absolutely drenched. And I think we weren't able to get there weren't in taxis, or it was hard to get a taxi, or it wouldn't have been worth getting a taxi for the distance, or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, we all end up stuck in this flat, and I'm stuck in this flat with like 20 people, many of whom I don't know, and I didn't even have a bedroom because, and so you're kind of stuck there with this bunch of people, and the party ended up going on all night, and I was like, this is really, really tough because I just want to get away from these people, and I literally can't because I'm kind of stuck here in this apartment. I mean, I suppose I could have. The only thing I could have done was hit the nuclear switch and said, listen, I'm going to go, got a taxi to the railway station and done that. But I mean, I wasn't really able to do that because they were friends of mine. So those kinds of situations where you're stuck in a social situation and you literally can't do anything, I find that really, really hard. But to be honest, those don't come along very often. You know, it's very unusual for something like that to happen. Most of the time, we've all got autonomy. I can go out, I can meet with friends. I can then say, listen, guys, I'm tired. I'm going to get going. Bang, go, whatever. But as I say, I prefer one-on-ones. Some of the most powerfully charismatic folks I've met were self-described introverts. Indeed. Isaac says, never cold approach. I live in a smallish town. Should I stay local or look elsewhere when I'm still going through the growing pains of learning to approach? If you can, I would look elsewhere because a small town is just not really conducive to game. It's just not a good vibe because you're going to have like you're going to see people you're going to start seeing the same people again and again. You're going to be worried about like, oh, what if so and so sees me? What if she sees me again? Blah blah blah. It's just not a very good vibe. So the game is best played in large cities where there's anonymity and where there is a big population. So if you can get somewhere else, I would definitely recommend that. Rory says, the UK is very class-based and hierarchy-based society, so it's best to go against these rules, especially in London, which can be very cliquey. So yes, you should approach the hot underwear models. Yes, it is. And I mean, are you based in the UK, Rory? I forget. I mean, obviously, we don't want to go too specific about London because a lot of people who will watch this probably aren't from the UK. But yes, I mean, London and the UK can be very cliquey. I mean, like I'm in a fortunate position because I've lived in London for many, many years. My family's from here. My family live near here, not in London, but out quite near to London. I've got many, many friends here. I've got a lot of connections here. So, and I've got, and my connections, by the way, are really from all aspects of society. So I know people who are very, very wealthy, very rich, very powerful, well-connected. And I also know people who are kind of on the very bottom of the pile as well. So my reach is quite wide here. And I feel very, very comfortable in London, which is one of the main reasons why I haven't really moved out. Because to be honest, there are many arguments to do so. But I've always ended up coming back here and spending a lot of time here because of those reasons, So for me now, I am over the problem of like hierarchies and stuff like that, because that's not to say that I'm welcome in every social circle. I mean, obviously, if Dua Lipa holds a party, I'm not going to get in. Do you know what I mean? But you know, I'm very comfortable here. So what you're talking about is less of an issue. But what you're absolutely right about is that yes, the key thing is to hack the system, and this is for me what game is all about, right? It's about hacking the system, because, and this is, like you said, this is why you should approach the underwear model, because the underwear model. I'm going to get a whiteboard. Actually, I need to get a whiteboard in order to really get into this stuff, and I think it'd be good for the show as well. So look out for a whiteboard in forthcoming episodes. But if you imagine like a triangle, let's say. So at the top, you've got the very core elite kind of society people, and you've got the hot underwear model, you've got the pop stars, you've got the TV celebrities, whatever, at the top. And then as you come down, obviously you've got everyone else, and at the bottom and maybe it even goes in like this, because you've got the bottom, the normal people, and it goes in like this, and you've got the underclass, the sort of like the homeless and everything else here. But yeah, theoretically, if you just accept hierarchy as it is, then you're somewhere at the bottom of the triangle. You are never going to get to these people at the top of the triangle, because they're in a different place on the hierarchy for you. And if you accept hierarchy at face value, and I'm not even just talking about access here, because access is one thing. That is to say, can you even meet these people anyway? Because can you get into the right parties, the right clubs, the right lounge bars, whatever? But even assuming you can, if you've got it in your head that these people are too good for me and I'm not part of that social clique, then you're never going to have access to those women. You're never going to have access to those social circles. A much better way of looking at this, a much better way of coming at this, is to say to is to tell yourself and to believe it, that you are not part of any hierarchy. Right? Hierarchies are unimportant as far as you're concerned, because you have this almost magical ability to walk into any situation and to be able to thrive in that situation. Okay, and this is something that I think I can do. I mean, I make huge claims for myself here, but I do believe that I can socialize in very different scenarios. Like I have friends who are, as I say, very wealthy, very well connected, etc., etc. I can socialize with those people. I can also socialize more with the normies, if you like, just regular people, whatever. And I also know people who are, if you like, almost in the underclass, if you like, and I can also get on with those people. And that is something that I would advise everybody to do, because you want to dissolve your notion of hierarchy, because your notion of hierarchies are only going to hold you back. You want to be like a chemical that just cuts through, okay? Or you want to be like mercury that just goes through everything, right? You don't want to be hidebound by ideas that are really artificial about hierarchy. But the great thing as well about big cities, going back to the question about small towns, etc., is that hierarchies are present, but they are also mutable. Not mutable, mutable. That is to say, yes, hierarchies are present, but they also dissolve and come apart and reform in different formations in different places. An example of that is if you go to nightclub, if you used to go to nightclubs or you used to take drugs. In those situations, you see cliques and hierarchies start to break down, because you will get the rich, famous pop star who's probably eating dinner at the Ivy and whatever, and is in the higher echelons of society. But that same person will go to the nightclub in Vauxhall and take a load of drugs and take a load of pills and get off his head. Okay, and so what you find in those situations is that society starts to break down. Not break down, that's the wrong term, sorry, but society hierarchies start to dissolve, and you can start to meet people outside from different hierarchies. So the underwear model, who maybe spends her holidays on a yacht in Monaco or whatever, if she's walking down the road from the grocery store and you get talking to her there, you haven't had to build up your value in that hierarchy. You haven't had to reach the top of that hierarchy, because you've just met her walking down to the grocery store. Now, I'm not saying that that it doesn't mean that your competition disappears, because in her phone she's still got, you know, some prince in Dubai and, you know, some actor and sports star and whoever it is hitting her up. So it's not that your competition disappears, but it is that you have a shot. And if you put yourself across well, and the way that you put yourself across well is through mindset and then through charisma, which is what I teach in Charisma and Dating Academy, you're in with a chance that you wouldn't have had otherwise with that particular woman, and indeed to infiltrate her particular tier in the hierarchy, if you like. Sorry, back to the throat issue. Roy says, do you think that men find women who are too extroverted less attractive? I think that there's something in that, yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends how it manifests itself, but yes, I think if she's too like all over the place and everything, then I don't particularly find that attractive personally. And it can come across as quite masculine as well, and that is in general not something that I personally find particularly appealing. So Rory is in Harrogate, which is in Yorkshire, isn't it? It has 85,000 population. Social pressure is so much higher when I've approached women than a bigger city. Yeah, definitely. So I would get out. I would travel to somewhere else. You know, maybe. I mean, York is. I don't know if York's a good suggestion. Leeds is probably a good place to try. If you can get over to Manchester or something like that, I would like do some day trips to some bigger cities. Well, perhaps you do already, actually, because I think you were answering Isaac's question. But yeah, for sure, people need to get out and try to get to some bigger locations if they can. And then Eula Andrade says, what is the best sentence to approach on Instagram, and how many girls should one talk to daily to increase the odds of getting girls through social media? Instagram game is not something that I really have done very much of, full transparency, but I know people that do, and the first thing is that the best, from my understanding, the best thing that you can do is to create an opener that is emotionally resonant in some way. So you don't want to have a boring like hi. You want to have something that kind of like either makes her laugh or makes her angry, or kind of like it makes her go oh, or you know, you want to create some sort of a reaction. And a good way to do this on Instagram is to reply to her stories, because she'll like reply to people's stories. She's given you something to talk about, so then you can respond to that thing, okay, whatever she's doing in the story. So that's one little tip. And in terms of how many, I know guys who reach out to up to 40 a day, okay, on Instagram through different messages and things. So you need to be working volume, because Instagram is, I mean, to be honest, Instagram is a bit of a hierarchy, really, because I was talking to a dude the other night who's got a blue check mark, and he was saying the thing about having a blue check mark on Instagram is not that you're going to get laid as a result of having that blue check mark, but the fact is that you're going to get noticed more, because when she's in her inbox and she's looking through the DMs, one with a blue check mark is just going to stand out more. So, you know, in that sense, Instagram is also a hierarchy. And then there's things like how many followers have you got, how good your pictures are, blah, blah, blah. So that would be my advice for that. But somebody like Myron Gaines is good to talk to about that, or somebody like John MLD. John MLD is building up an Instagram at the moment. I think it's Hot Dude Life, which is his like thirst trap Instagram. So it's worth having a look at that as well. I tend to find, Eltar says, I tend to find being in a bigger major city is a must for Tinder and Bumble. You need volume, 100%. I mean, volume is always going to help. I was coaching one time, because I do a bit of private coaching over Zoom. I mean, Skype formerly, but I tend to use Zoom these days. So if anyone's interested in private coaching, by the way, just drop me a message, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. But I was coaching a guy a while back. I'll just put the email in. I was coaching a guy a while back, and he was in Canada, and he was in somewhere remote in Canada, and like a little like village, more or less. And he would say to me like, "Oh yeah, I I can't do the accent, but he'd be like, yeah, man, you know, I'm going to go out and do my approaches this week. And one time we were on the video call, and he turned his camera around and he showed me his location. And literally, this was just like, it looked like sort of like a mountain covered in snow. There was a bit of forest, no one around. And he said, oh yeah, sometimes like once an hour, I might see somebody walk past. Sometimes it's a woman, you know. And he sort of said, oh, like one time there was this married, you know, I saw this couple coming towards me, and I thought, geez, I really should have approached. I know Troy would have wanted me to approach the woman. I really should have approached the woman. In this couple, they're probably married. And I'm like, mate, this is like with the best will in the world, if that is your hunting ground, you know, a snow-ridden, like empty landscape where you only see somebody once an hour, how are you going to get results in this area? How are you going to even improve in this area? Because you're just not going to have, you know, you need volume. Like Myron says, you need to be working volume, and in order to work volume, there needs to be the volume there. So the best thing that you can do is to get yourself into the biggest possible place available. You know, obviously, I know people have jobs, they have family, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But you've got to kind of balance these things out. You know, if you're living in a bumfuck place in the middle of nowhere and there's no population, then inevitably your results are not going to be what they could if you lived in a bigger city. So you just have to weigh the things up. You have to think, well, how badly do I want this? How much do I want to create opportunities for myself? Am I willing to to go and live somewhere else for a little while just to get good at this? I mean, at the very least, if you can travel on weekends to somewhere that's bigger, and maybe to set your Tinder to that local place that is bigger and use that as your pool of potential leads, then that's going to be better. But small towns and things, it's tricky, and there's no, you know, you're in a much more hierarchical position in a small town, remember, because people maybe know you and they maybe have rated you already against the town Chad and the town Tyrone. And if you're not the town Chad and you're not the town Tyrone, then you are rated lower than those people. In London, I can walk out the door, I don't see anybody I know. You know, I see a bunch of new people that I've never seen before. They're never going to see me again. My position in the hierarchy, and this is the advantage, both of stepping outside of hierarchies and also being in a big city, is that my position in the hierarchy is unknown to most women when they see me in the street, and even when I approach them. You know, they don't know if I'm old money. They don't know if I'm a tech billionaire. They don't know if I'm a seedy dating coach. They don't know if I'm a world-class writer. And, you know, they don't know, you know, they can't tell from just meeting me. They can't place me. And that is a really, really important advantage to have. I'm not saying they lie about it and say, well, I've got 15 Lambos parked outside. But, you know, it's really, really, the less you can be placed, the less you can be pegged, and potentially pegged lower than you want to be, the better in terms of your dating success. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to have to cut the show now because Rory's just saying, I live in a small town makes me more introverted. I've always felt more able to express myself, more liberated when I visit London and other big cities. I mean, that's true. And yeah, I think, you know, it's a kind of a cliche, but I think coming to the big city, it does allow people to express themselves. And because the other thing is, well, if you live in a small town, you've got the same mates that you had for years, etc. You're kind of locked into a hierarchy, and you're locked into an impression of yourself that's really hard to break out of. If you move to a big city, it's all gone, man. You can be who you want to be. You can do what you want to do, and nobody's going to say anything, you know? Anyway, on that note, I have to bring the broadcast to a close because I've got to go out into the big city myself. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Please do hit subscribe to the channel. Please do join me on Monday. I'll be doing another show on Monday around the same time. So that is 11 a.m. or maybe 11:30 a.m. EST. Going to be doing these Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays going forward. It's all going to be basically around charisma and dating techniques, game techniques, etc., etc. So yeah, it's going to be good. I look forward to seeing you next week. Do support me by grabbing a copy of Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books. Link is below. I do get on the daily email list also. I've had a break actually from sending out emails the last week or so. So if you're on the list, apologies for that. But I will be back in the saddle next week. All right, guys, thanks very much for tuning in, and I will see you again very